Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I did nothing. Literally nothing. I watched TV and I diamond painted. Seriously, that's it. That's all I did. Um Yesterday was Star Wars Day. I thought it was today. It wasn't. It was yesterday. So, happy Star Wars Day. Happy Star Wars Day. Today is Sith Day, but I have, which I guess my cup is Rogue One's Defend the Empire. So I guess I have a Sith cup. So I guess that balances out. And it's also Cinco de Mayo. So, um, ooh, I should make Mexican for dinner. What can I make? He is burnout on chicken fajitas because that's like healthy Mexican. And when I diet, I do, which I've been doing for a year now, right? So I make a lot of chicken fajitas. So like he's burnt out on chicken fajitas. So if I say, you know what, honey, it's Cinco de Mayo, we need to have Mexican food, he's gonna be like, no. Although I did a few weeks ago, I did like taco meat on a baked potato. I think I told you guys. Um, thank you. Um, and yeah, I could do tacos. He likes soft tacos though. We don't ever have hard tacos. I mean, I guess I could get hard shells for me. He likes soft tacos. He doesn't like anything crunchy. It's bad teeth, so he doesn't like anything crunchy. Like if we go to Kentucky Fried Chicken, like we can't get a bucket of chicken from Kentucky Fried Chicken because I like crispy and he likes original recipe because he doesn't want anything crunchy. My eyes watering again, guys. Sorry. I don't know why. Um, so we have some more trivia from Judy. Good morning, Judy, my wonderful mod. Lana Clarkson. In February 2012, Donna, Lana's mother, settled a civil suit with Spector and his insurance company over the wrongful death of Lana Clarkson. Terms of the settlement were not released. I don't really understand that. Like, what is the money going to do? It's not going to bring her back. Now, OJ, that's kind of different because he got acquitted, right? So suing him, that was kind of like, let's prove he did it, right? But in this case, well, the first trial was a hung jury, right? So, but he did eventually go to prison for her death. So why sue him? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I think people sue too easy in this country. But that's just my opinion. Lana is entombed in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles, California. She is in the Chapel Columbarium on the second floor. She receives almost daily cards and flowers at the site from fans. See, I would go visit that. I would love to visit celebrity graves. I'm weird. I know. I went to Chicago. One time I've been to Chicago. I loved it. And the friend that I was staying with, I'm like, I want to go to Al Capone's grave. And she was like, no. Can I just go see it and like take a picture? No. Why not? Because I don't want to go. You're no fun. This is probably the only time in my life I'll ever get to Chicago. I just want to go take a picture of his headstone. No. She wouldn't take me to, is it Cabrini Green, where like Candyman was from? She's like, no, because I'll get my hubcap stolen off my car or my car stolen. It's like, I just want to, we don't have to stop. I just want to drive by and take a picture. She's like, no. Which is probably good because if I was a tourist somewhere, I'd probably want to go to all these places that I've seen like on TV and movies and everything. I would probably get robbed blind. But I just want to see places. Like, I don't want to go there. When I was in New York, first time I went to New York, I wanted to go down on the subway just to see it. I didn't want to ride it. I just want to go down there to see it. My brother and sister-in-law wouldn't let me go down there. I'm like, they're like, oh, it's like a little city down there. I'm like, well, let me go see it. No. Nobody lets me see anything. I'm just curious that way. I want to see stuff. No. Quit telling me no. I'm just curious. But yeah, if I went places by myself, I would probably get in major trouble because I'd want to see and do everything there was to do. Ugh. Good morning. Good morning, Judy, Jill, Carla. Oh, he's in Hillside, Illinois? Is that close to Chicago? I thought he was in Chicago. Yeah, but she wouldn't take me anywhere. She said she had a friend come to visit her once, and they did everything that Ferris Bueller did in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. We couldn't even go up in Sears Tower because it was so foggy, we wouldn't have been able to see anything. So it was... well, I mean, we did fun stuff, but still, it was like so many things I wanted to do that she wouldn't let me do. But we had a good time. Okay, so we are on, it says the redirect of DeMaio. Oh, just outside of Chicago. Okay, so I was right. It says we're on the redirect. I didn't realize we were done with the cross, but I guess maybe we are. Or maybe it's gonna finish the cross and go into the redirect. It's about an hour and 21 minutes long. So we'll do as much as we can before 9. And this is the last part of DeMaio. Thank God. His eyebrows are just can't deal with him very much longer. He's just a windbag. Like, he just likes the sound of his own voice, I think. So yeah, we're almost done with this guy. Part 7, man. How many days is that? I don't even know how court TV.
Come to order. Department 106 is again in session.
All right, all the parties, jurors alternate.
All right, StreamYard, don't start. Thank you.
And the witness are present. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. DeMaio, before we left off for the noon break, I was asking you about incidents that you may or may not have violence against women with attorney Dorothy.
Start this now. Be careful, Jill.
Melvin or involving Dorothy Melvin. You said you were aware of that, correct?
Yes, sir.
I asked you if you were aware of a January 1995 incident at the Carlisle Hotel in New York. Stephanie Jennings as well. Aware of that incident as well, correct?
Yeah.
Both of those women described what they believe to be a revolver involved, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, Dorothy Melvin described a second gun, and that would have been the shotgun involved, correct?
Yes, sir.
Are you also aware of a 1988 incident involving Diane Ogden, wherein after drinking to excess, Diane Ogden wanted to leave his house in Pasadena, that he became enraged. She put her purse on her arm and tried to leave. He pulled a gun, forced her into a chair by the door, pressed the gun against her face, her cheeks, her neck, her head. Are you aware of that incident?
Yes, sir.
Are you aware of an incident involving Diane Ogden that happened about 2 weeks after that incident? Basically the same thing. Mr. Spector had been drinking to excess at a dinner party. All the guests left. She decided that she was going to leave as well. She grabbed her keys, grabbed her purse, began to leave the residence. and Mr. Spector chased her out of the house with a gun, began to beat on her car door, car door window with the butt of the gun until she was able to escape from the property. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
The first incident, I'm sure you're aware of having gone over the reports and watched the testimony, that Diane Ogden described what she believed to be a revolver involved in the first incident, correct?
I wasn't aware what type of gun it was.
Okay. Are you also aware of a 1992 incident involving Melissa Grosvenor?
Yes, sir.
And Melissa Grosvenor has indicated that she was at Mr. Spector's Pasadena house, that Mr. Spector had been out to dinner with her. He had been drinking to excess. She wanted to leave and come in for the weekend. That she decided she wanted to leave Spector room in which they were standing, which she described as a great room. He then returned without saying a word. He walked in with a gun in his hand, outstretched toward her face, walked up to her, and again forced her into a chair at gunpoint. Are you aware?
Yes.
Are you aware that Ms. Grosvenor described Mr. Spector as having what she thought was a revolver? And when she was asked, was it loaded? She said, I certainly wasn't going to test it. Are you aware of that?
I wasn't aware that was a revolver.
And you're also aware, are you not, that he kept her at bay, at gunpoint with a gun pointed to her head and face throughout the entire night?
Yes.
And she was able to leave the next day, correct?
Yes.
Dr. DeMaio, my question is, and you've indicated positively, in other words, in the affirmative, that you considered each and every one of these incidents when coming to your conclusions and opinions in this particular case, correct?
Yes, sir.
You indicated at the beginning of your testimony, hearkening all the way back to yesterday morning when Mr. Plourde asked you about how you handle cases. You looked at the jurors and you said, in fact, Mr. Plourde, the way that a good forensic pathologist looks at any case is to begin by understanding and conceptualizing the entire circumstances of the case and the facts that surround that particular case.
Yes.
You described it as a history, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so in taking that history, you actually said it's sort of like taking the history of a new patient. If the jurors were to go to their family internist, for instance, their family doctor, and that doctor were to take a patient history, you want to get as much information, as full an account of that history as you possibly can. Is that right, Dr. DeMaio?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, any expert forensic pathologist who was looking at this case or any other case would want to do the same thing and get a full global history of all the facts and circumstances and weigh and consider all of those facts and circumstances before rendering any opinions or conclusions. Correct, sir?
Yes, but physical evidence trumps history.
And in fact, you included
Physical evidence trumps history.
And in fact, you included certain histories in your report, did you not?
Yes, sir.
And you included Lana Clarkson's history, correct?
Yes, sir.
You included the history concerning her emails, correct?
Yes, sir.
You included some of the history concerning what you interpret to be her job or job opportunities, correct?
Yes, sir.
You included certain histories regarding her mental state, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in all of that, you included all of those histories because you felt like it was important to get a full and global view of the circumstances.
In regards to this case, yes, sir.
Isn't it true, sir, that when you came to your conclusions in your report, in the last paragraph, you indicated, in conclusion, this case should never have been ruled a homicide, and the reasons are, and then you indicate 5 reasons, correct?
Right.
And in those 5 reasons, isn't it true that you indicated one of the reasons was Ms. Clarkson had reasons for committing suicide and was intoxicated? In other words, that included her history and
Right.
your review of her emails,
Yes, sir.
correct? And you included, in conclusion, or based on your conclusion is based on, in part, the physical disparity between Ms. Clarkson and Mr. Spector was such that if anyone was shot in a struggle, it would, in all likelihood, have been him and not her, correct?
Yes, sir.
So in fact, when you told this jury before lunch that you weren't including those factors in your conclusion, that is incorrect. Isn't that right?
No, sir.
You in fact included those in a paragraph where you enumerated each and every conclusion that you were based on, correct?
No, sir. Excuse me, but the last question you did let me answer. And what I said in the last question is no, sir. My conclusion as to who fired the gun is not based on the history, but is based on the physical evidence. And as I told the jury before, when you consider both histories, you can go either way. The best, most objective way of determining who fired the gun is to look at the physical evidence, the intraoral wound, the tissue, the blood, the gunshot residue. And that's what my opinion is.
And of course, I assume from your recitation of the appropriate manner to approach any particular case, that being to take a global history of all the facts and circumstances into account. I'm sure that you did, in fact, take those facts and circumstances into account with regard to Mr. Spector's history of violence.
Yes, I did.
I'd like you to turn in your report to the page where you recite Mr. Spector's history of violence with women.
I didn't do it because the report...
You didn't include that in your report, Dr. Meyer, did you?
I didn't do it because the report was intended for you, and I figured you had already known this, and I wasn't going to go over. This report was not intended for the defense. This was a report to let you know what my opinions were and what my thoughts were. And so that's why I included a bunch of things that that I'm not using to consider who fired the gun. This was so that you would know what I was thinking, and you couldn't say, well, you didn't tell me ahead of time.
And of course, yesterday, when you were given a full opportunity to explain to the jurors exactly what you based your opinions and conclusions on, when Mr. Plourde asked you the open-ended question, Dr. DeMaio, how did you come to your conclusions, or what did you include? You told this jury that you included history, and you, in fact, the second part of that, or the second of that, and you didn't tell them anything about your conclusions and opinions regarding the history of violence against women, did you?
I think that you're misquoting me. What I told the jury was that the most important thing in this case is the objective scientific evidence, and that the histories are awash, and that my opinion, I've said it multiple times, that my opinion is based on the intraoral nature of the wound, the gunshot residue, the blood, and the tissue.
And of course, we've already talked about this, but since you brought it up again, to reiterate, intraoral gunshot wounds can be homicides, correct?
Very, very rarely, even according...
Can they or can they not be homicides, yes. Dr. DeMaio? It's a simple question.
Yes, sir.
All right. And GSR on Mr. Spector's hands is consistent with him firing the weapon, i.e. a homicide, correct?
Yes.
The blood on the jacket is consistent with Mr. Spector being in the vicinity of a bloodletting event, correct?
In the vicinity, yes. Not right close up, but in
certainly nothing inconsistent with him having fired the weapon, correct?
Well, there's no evidence of any his clothing or on his the cuff of his shirt or the cuff of his.
Talked about being on his jacket and his sleeves and his cuff, correct?
Except that is not blood mist.
In your opinion?
Well, it's also it's Mr. Kish's opinion, Mr. James's opinion, and Dr. Lee's opinion, who all examined the jacket while I was standing there.
Hey, girl, I got something for you. Hang on. Don't go yet. Don't go yet. Don't go yet. Let me find it.
Don't be suspicious. No. Don't be suspicious. 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 Don't be suspicious.
John Ralphio?
Kom, je dikke stennis op! Kom eruit! Je dikke stennis op! Je dikke stennis op!
And of course, you're not a scientific, you're not a criminalist trained in that science particularly.
That's correct, sir.
All right. And you're testifying here today, correct?
I'm testifying as to, to the cause of death and who fired the weapon and why my opinions how I reach my opinions as to what the cause of death is.
And on that issue, I'm going to ask you one more time on that issue, how you reached your opinions and why you reached your opinions yesterday and today. You have yet, until I asked you on cross-examination, you had yet to tell this jury that you were aware of Mr. Spector's history of violence against women, yet you did volunteer Ms. Clarkson's history in your mind. Is that correct or is that not correct?
Argumented also.
Overruled.
Correct or not?
Sir, I don't think that's exactly correct.
And Dr. DeMaio,
I'm sorry, did you finish your answer?
Yes, sir.
thank you, Your Honor. May I?
Yes.
The hallmark of any credible work, once again, is to maintain.
Do you think this guy realizes how much Alan Jackson is making him look like a fool? Seriously, like every time he says, sir, he sounds so disrespectful and so pompous. Do you think he realizes how much of a fool he looks like up there on the stand?
It's a way of asking a question. The objection is wrong. The objection is overruled. I'm sorry.
Going back to what we talked about a little bit earlier, the hallmark of any credible expert, Dr. DeMaio, is to ensure that the expert is 100% objective, correct?
Yes,
100% neutral, correct?
yes,
100% independent, is that right?
yes,
Not tainted or swayed in any way, shape, form, or fashion toward or against one side or the other, but rather simply to give a scientific opinion based on solid scientific evidence. Is that correct?
yes, sir, and
And-
that's what I have done.
And your
I've
opinion
gi-
has not in any way, Dr. DeMaio, been tainted or shaded or swayed by the fact that you work for Mr. Spector or that he's writing your paycheck, correct?
Actually, I work for I've been retained for the attorneys.
Who have been
I-
retained by Mr. Spector, correct?
I've been retained by the attorneys to give my opinion, and I gave my opinion. And if they didn't like the opinion, I don't care.
And of
It doesn't
course,
make any difference to
and of
them.
course, the attorneys are hired by Mr. Spector, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor, that's all.
Thank you. Redirect.
I want to go over a few of the points that Mr. Jackson brought up during the cross-examination. I'm not going to go over every one of them, but I want to touch on a few of them. You wrote a report in this particular case because basically the court directed the experts to write reports.
This is leading.
Sustained.
Okay. Did you write the reports, a report in this case regarding the evaluation that you did of all the materials that you were given?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I don't want to go through a list of all of the materials, but you were given a large amount of materials and you listed them and you reviewed all of them and you considered all of them in evaluating this case. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And it sounds like from your recitation of this case that basically the key thing with you was the physical evidence in this case that told you and answered the question as to who was holding the gun when it was fired. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, because the physical evidence hasn't any prejudice. The physical evidence is objective. The physical evidence is interpretable. Right, histories you have to be careful about.
Okay. Let me give you just an example as far as part of the histories in this case. That, like, for example, Dr. Pena talked about the fact that, and he put it in his autopsy report, that there was no suicide note. In other words, that's not a fact in the sense that that's not that's a fact of the case. And you considered, for example, that fact. Is that true?
No, actually, he put it in, but it doesn't because most of the times people don't leave suicide notes. And this isn't a real suicide, where people think they're plotting, they're thinking of killing themselves. This appears to be just an
Objection. This is
impulse.
and this is non-responsive.
It's part of his opinion. I'll allow it.
And phenomenal actions. She was under the influence of alcohol, and people do stupid things that they regret immediately. And this is what it appears. It appears to have been a stupid impulse. That's what it was.
Now, Dr. DeMaio, I want to ask you a few follow-up questions on some of the physical evidence issues and some of the questions and this issue of the barrel pressure, muscle pressure. In on the general concept. The pressure is a peak, is that correct?
Right. It's actually the cartridge just fired, not the bullet. What happens is the firing hits the primer, detonates the primer, a jet of flame goes through holes into the powder. The powder is then burns. And as it burns, it produces gas and the pressure climbs. And a 38, depending on the ammunition, the pressure can be anywhere from 15,000 to 20 pounds per square inch in the barrel. Then the gas then starts pushing, after a short period, begins to push the bullet down the barrel. As the bullet goes down the barrel, you have more volume, and therefore the gas pressure begins to drop. The bullet then jumps the gap between the cylinder to the barrel, and more pressure is lost there. But most of the gas continues to follow the bullet. In a 2-inch barrel gun, by the time it reaches the end of the 2 inches, the pressure of the gas as it's emerging is at least 1,000 pounds per square inch. It's at more with this type of ammunition because it's plus P.
Okay. And in your experience, and you've actually published a book on gunshot wounds, and you've written a lot of papers involving gunshot deaths. This is sort of a specialty area of yours in the field of forensic pathology. Is that correct? And give the jury an idea, in your experience, how many times autopsy, being the person oversaw the autopsy, maybe in your office, or being a consultant in a case such as this?
This goes into thousands and thousands and thousands. My office handled about, say, 30, during the time it did about 30,000 autopsies. You figure that at least 20% of the cases are going to be gunshot wounds, if not more. Okay. So that's what, 20, that's 6,000. So 5,000, 6,000, something like that. Minimum cases of gunshot wounds. I've either performed the autopsy or reviewed, because in my office, I reviewed every single autopsy before it went out of the office. That was my custom.
And is it true, Dr. DeMaio, that you get retained as a consultant on cases that were outside of your office throughout the United States by both prosecuting attorneys, their prosecutor offices, as well as lawyers, on issues involving gunshot wound deaths?
Yes, I've also been retained by the United Nations and by the British government in interpreting gunshot wounds.
You testified in foreign countries as well as many states within the United States. Is that true?
I think the last time I figured about 35 states, Canada, South Africa.
You write reports regarding your cases when you're consulting?
It depends on the thing.
Does that mean you're always right just because you testified in other countries? I don't think that's an automatic endorsement that you're correct 100% of the time.
You know, if I'm requested to, I write a report. In some states, in the criminal justice system, reports are not required, and then I don't write reports.
Okay, so when you request to or required to, you report, correct?
Yes.
And sometimes in cases you end up not any different reasons, is that correct?
Oh, yeah. I have a tendency to tell the truth, and sometimes people, aren't interested in what I have to say, because I'm going to tell the truth. I don't care. I mean, it's my reputation, and so I'm not going to do anything for a couple of bucks, because again, I get cases sent to me. I don't even advertise, and I have more than enough work to do.
Dr. DeMaio, on a regular basis, do forensic pathologists, people, this group of 200, 300, whatever number of people in the United States do the type of specialty work that you do, that you've dedicated your career to, do they ever call you and ask you questions about gunshot wound deaths and wound ballistic?
Yes, because I think you kind of put it I've spent a good part of my life studying gunshot wounds. That's what I got interested in. That book there doesn't look like it's much, but the first edition, it took me 11 years to write, to get everything together. And there's a lot of work put in that.
Okay. Dr. DeMaio, you mentioned that during the cross-examination, that you've actually fired into a body before, and you know something about the back spatter. And I assume that was a cadaver body?
Yes, definitely it was a cadaver. Yeah, okay. Multiple bodies. That was when I was back in Baltimore, and we had permission from the anatomical board to use bodies that were the property of the anatomical board. And they were going to be cremated, and so they gave us permission.
Okay, and that was part of various studies and research that you were involved in as part of your background in this field of wound ballistics and issues related to that. Is that correct?
Yes, and this work's been published.
Okay, and Dr. DeMaio, there's certainly a difference when there's a live person and a dead person, but that's just some information that you have regarding that. Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
Okay. Dr. DeMaio, there were some questions, and I kind of started this whole area here by asking you about this pressure the cartridge creates, and it hits a peak pressure, and the manufacturer has to know about that so that they make the gun, correct?
Right. Well, right. What happens is the manufacturers have all got together, and they formed a group, and they've constructed a cartridge you want to sell. It cannot exceed the pressures that are specified, because you blow guns.
Dealing with firearms, who I believe gave testimony that somewhere around 17,000 pounds per square inch was the design maximum pressure for this particular weapon. Is that in the range?
It's kind of like the newer guns can take more pressure than the older guns, but there are millions of the older guns around. So you have to, be real careful. And a lot of times they'll say on the boxes of ammunition, only use in modern firearms.
Yeah. What's your experience in firing guns, owning guns, or shooting guns? I mean, during your career, this seemed to be an area of concern or interest for you. Do you continue to do that?
Yes. In the military, I fired virtually everything the military had, and some things they weren't supposed to have. In civilian life, I've fired, probably hundreds of guns, different calibers. And when something new comes on the market, I try to get hold of it. I buy it if necessary, and then test fire it to see what the characteristics of it are.
Okay, that's because you hold yourself out to be an expert in wounds and firearm deaths. Is that correct? You need to know what.
It's mostly because I'm interested in this subject, and whether I publish or testify on it, I'm still interested in what the effects are.
Okay. Now, Dr. DeMaio, the maximum pressure of the gun, the manufacturer needs to know that, and the person that's using the weapon needs to know that. But the concern that you have as a pathologist is that what type of pressures occur once that pressure moves out of the barrel and into the body or near a body, correct?
Right. What the pathologist is interested in is, remember the gas cloud when you fire the gun? That gas cloud will be now in the body, and there'll be pressure. And that's important because that, to a degree, determines the extent of the wound. And it influences the severity of the wound, may also determine whether with blanks, if you put it between the ribs and fire, the blank is going to tear right through your wall and into the underlying wall. And I can tell you, I've done experiments showing that. And there's been some deaths due to that.
Okay. Now, Dr. DeMaio, with regards to this effect of this gas when it leaves familiar with the 38 Colt Cobra as to its characteristics.
Yes.
Okay. And when it comes to gunshot residue, do you know what the variabilities are with respect to the 38 Colt Cobra?
You mean, does it, well, obviously, because if it's a revolver, it produces the gunshot residue out the cylinder and out the barrel end of the gun. And actually, among revolvers, the 38 caliber is interesting in that it has a lot more residue than even 357s for some reason no one really understands.
And what's your basis for making that statement, sir?
Oh, because in my office, we do gunshot residue studies on every single gunshot case, except those who've been hospitalized. So all homicides or suicides had analysis of gunshot residue performed on the hands. In some instances, it's for the elemental compounds, antimony, barium, and lead. In other instances, it's like in this case, SEM, where they did a scanning electron microscope.
Now, with reference to this particular case, some of the effects of the firing of this particular weapon, you
Can you guys still hear Court? It said it muted my mic. I don't know if it muted Court or not.
gave the testimony that some of the unnatural tooth particles were blown out even before the gun physically came in contact with any of the tooth structure. Is that correct?
Right.
And that was because of the gases. Is that true?
Yes, the gases under high pressure fragmented and dislodged the caps and ejected them before the gun even recoiled out of the mouth.
There were natural teeth within the mouth that did not get ejected. What would be the reason for that?
Okay, from the mouth, you do not damage your teeth. Again, well, this is something that seems common sense tells you it's wrong, but it's right. What happens is if you put a gun in your mouth, you fire it, the gun comes out, and the teeth are not damaged. The reason is they're anchored, and the fact that they're construction. The teeth are extremely hard. And if you think about it, if you go out running for 10 or 20 years, you're going to wear away your knee joints, and you're going to have to get artificial joints. But your teeth, if you make sure you don't get cavity and brush them, they last a lifetime because the teeth all.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me if an explosion goes off in your mouth, your teeth are not going to be harmed? What?
Day long are chewing and grinding, and so they have to be actually harder than bone because they're built for a lot more. They're built to last a lifetime. Knee joints are, but if you start giving trauma like running, the joggers down the line, they're going to get titanium knee joints.
Dr. DeMaio, with reference to the teeth, if a bullet actually came in contact with a tooth, there would be tooth damage. Is that correct?
Right. If a bullet hit the tooth, there would have been fragments of tooth material. Right.
Okay. And they would go into the body essentially if it was outside.
Right. If it came in, it would push them in. Right.
And if a bullet came near any object, would there be any transfer that you could look at and tell whether that object came in contact with a bullet?
Oh, you mean if it perforated a thing?
Or just nicked something?
Okay.
Or anything?
What you could look for would be, maybe a part of the hole punched in. You might look for bullet wipe, which is a deposit of I guess the non-technological word is gunk. The stuff that's in the barrel. There'll be oil, there'll be a little grease, there'll be unburnt powder, soot, and also soot from the cartridge you're firing, and it tends to coat the bullet. And so when the bullet comes into clothing, you often see a hole with a little gray ring around it, and that's bullet wipe. Bullet is literally wiping itself clean. And if it hits something like skin, depending on how dirty the bullet is, you may get some there, or if it hits like bone or teeth, you may get deposits of bullet wipe. Depends on how dirty the bullet is.
Okay. In this particular case, were you aware whether any of the bullet, the tooth particles, the now natural tooth particles, or whatever particles were collected, had any bullet wipe on it?
Oh, no, but the gun was inside the mouth. And everything was blown out. So there would not have been anything on the particles of...
Another area that Mr. Jackson talked to you about at length, both the background of Mr. Spector, the background of Ms. Clarkson, and so forth. Is it your testimony that essentially all of that background didn't answer the question that you were asked to look at, and that was who was holding the gun at the time that it was discharged?
Right. You know, when you considered all of it, the only thing that could answer the question is the physical evidence, not the stories back and forth, because they're all subjective and people's versions and things like that. What you want to do is go to the objective scientific facts, the intraoral nature of the wound, the copious gunshot residue, the tissue on the arms, and the blood on the hands. And that's objective. That's not somebody, you know, I think this or I think that, or maybe he did this or maybe she did that.
Okay. So, for example, in the background materials, and we talked just a little bit about this before, that Ms. Clarkson was familiar with guns. That didn't tell you she held the gun or didn't hold the gun.
Right. It didn't.
Now, once you come to the conclusion that from the physical evidence, and you've mentioned this a number of times, what your basis was, as a medical examiner, then you have to talk about the manner of death. Is that the other equation that you're dealing with?
Yes.
Okay, and then you get into this mental state issue, whether or not she was depressed, et cetera. And that, again, is information that you have, but the physical evidence tells you whether she held the gun or not. Is that true?
Right. You know, again, it's different people's viewpoints of things. And so the safest thing to do, you still get the history, but it's relevant. It's best to deal with the objective scientific evidence and not other things.
Objective.
Predicts the history.
Stop. StreamYard. StreamYard. No, it is not October.
You believe the evidence. You don't believe the history.
Dr. DeMaio, with reference to Ms. Clarkson being the person that held the weapon and died of a self-inflicted wound, are you necessarily saying that she intended or specifically intended to take her life? Is that, do I read anything you said that suggests that?
Overall, again, it's what he's testified to and his opinion. You may answer.
When you look at the situation, it appears to be an impulsive action under the influence of alcohol with, you know, probably no thought of the consequences and the finality of the action. And alcohol, as I said over and over again, you know, makes you do things suddenly and you say, oh, I shouldn't do it. And so it looks like an impulsive action that fortunately final, but which if anyone else had a chance, you would undo.
Dr. DeMaio, some questions were asked about who you were hired by, the fact that you're getting paid. I take it if you weren't paid, you wouldn't be here. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm being paid for my time, right. I would be doing other work on another case if I was.
Okay, and you get paid on all the cases that you get hired on, correct?
Right. I
Okay.
get charged for my time.
And you mentioned that you've come to California for government agencies, the city of Los Angeles, other cities, prosecution agencies, you get paid the same rate to all those people, correct?
Right. I charged the city of Los Angeles for testifying earlier this year. They paid promptly. I've worked for the Napa Valley District Attorney's Office, the San Diego District Attorney's Office, the Riverside District Attorney's Office. And I've done civil cases for other cities and police agencies throughout California. I think this is the first case where I've done defense work in a criminal case in California for maybe 10 or 15 years. The rest of the cases have all been for the prosecutors.
A number of years ago, you worked for the district attorney's office here in Los Angeles.
Yes, two cases.
At the rate that you were charging then, they paid?
Right, they paid. California is governments are very good at paying properly.
Okay. Dr. DeMaio, one of the things that Mr. Jackson brought up was something in your report regarding the blood spatter. And in one part of a paragraph in your report, you said something like in the coroner's records, there's some documentation that says that there was no blood spatter on the hands, but a particular person in the coroner's file said something about being blood hands in a report.
That that in one of the documents in the coroner's file, it's mentioned that there was no back spatter on the hands of Miss Clarkson. And then when you look at the complete records of the file, you see that blood droplets were noted on the hands by criminalist Ginny Whitmund. And then this was a correction with the meeting with the district. I think it was a meeting with the district attorney's office. And they told them that, yes, there was blood spatter on her hands.
Okay, is it your recollection that it was Dr. Pena, your understanding of his documentation of the coroner's file was that he went to the scene, he looked at the fingernails, he looked at the hands, but he did not see any blood spatter.
Right. But Miss Whitman, who was with him, saw it and had to document it.
Okay, and then there was some question about the photographs, but you can actually see it in some of the
photographs. Right, the photographs didn't turn out as well as they were supposed to, apparently.
And is there any question that there was this back spatter on the decedent's hands?
Objection, the question as to.
In your mind?
Okay, overall, no, sir.
Okay. And you considered that along with the other physical evidence, is that true?
Yes, sir.
Give a minute.
Yes.
One of the things talked about, Mr. Jackson, was the approach that a doctor, just in general, the case, different with a forensic pathologist?
No. Again, it's history, physical, laboratory tests.
Consider the presenting circumstances. In other words, the initial information to kind of give you an idea of what you're dealing with.
Right. You want to have an idea, and sometimes the history is correct, and sometimes it turns out to be completely wrong.
Go ahead.
And so what in the end, if you have a conflict between history and objective scientific evidence, you always go with that. And it happens every now and then. And you have to go with that because people make mistakes, or histories you get aren't accurate, or have absolutely nothing to do with why the person died. And so what you want to do is you'd like everything to be objective scientific evidence. Some cases it's not there, other cases it is. But if it's there, you always go with it. You don't say, I'm going to ignore the scientific objective evidence and go with the history, because that's crazy. That's bad medicine. You have to go with the science.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Doctor, with reference to, just as an example of what you're talking about, if somebody, for example, says in a history, whether it's a medical history or part of the investigation, that I don't drink much, or I drink a lot, or I quit drinking, but then the autopsy shows that there's some alcohol or other substances on board, you go with that. Is that
right? They're not exactly telling the truth, and they've been drinking, and so you go with that.
okay, regardless if they tried to stop drinking or had problems drinking, etc.?
Right.
Doctor, is it, and this gets away from the physical evidence for the purposes of this question, but it was inquired into by Mr. Jackson. With reference to things that you are concerned about, is it a risk factor for somebody harming themselves if they have substance abuse problems, whether it's alcohol, drugs, or a combination?
It always is. You know, it's also a reflection of underlying tendency to take risks. And if you're under the influence, it's even, that tendency is magnified.
So if that's present in a case, you would consider that, I take it?
Yes.
Okay, if that's the only thing present in a case, would you make a determination if the physical evidence was contrary to that? In other words, if the physical evidence as to that, how the death occurred, would that trumpet the fact that somebody was a risk taker, as you use that term?
Physical evidence always trumps everything. You have to go with it.
You were asked to be here to listen to a part of Dr. Pena's testimony, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you came here and observed that, is that true?
Yes, sir.
And you were here for some of Dr. Harold's testimony, is that correct?
Yes.
And there was a little demonstration that Mr. Jackson did where he balled up a piece of paper and threw it and was talking to Dr. Harold at the time about, no matter how hard I throw this, it only goes so far. Do you remember that demonstration?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And
History is extremely important. 100%. Extremely. Because, well, you guys know, you're not stupid.
whether Mr. Jackson is a pitcher or just got a regular arm, or we get one of the pitchers from the Dodgers in here, that paper could go a certain distance in this room with the way the air is in this particular room. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it would change, though, if there were, let's say, a hurricane or a tornado where the winds were going, that ball of paper could go miles. Isn't that true?
That's correct.
Okay.
It depends on how much force is applied to it and over how long a time.
And what environment it was in. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is that essentially what the difference is between throwing a piece of paper or how much a blood spatter will go as far as distance when there's an interoral wound where you have all the gases blowing out of the mouth?
Yes. The thing is, the distance that a drop of blood will go is determined by two things. It's mass and the velocity imparted to it. And the more gas, the more velocity, the farther it will go, everything else being equal.
And from your experience, and you've been to scenes as you've testified, you've seen blood spatter in a variety of type of weapons. Is that true?
Oh, yes.
You've seen blood spatter when it's somebody gets shot in the torso versus the head, self-inflicted, homicides, etc. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, so you know that you've seen a lot of different circumstances where you know what happened and you know the effects of what happened.
Yes.
And in your experience, have you seen blood spatter, let's say 1 millimeter, let's say a half a millimeter go for?
Oh, yes.
You see it go?
Yes. There's so many factors that go, it's the amount of energy, it's the turbulence and things, how the person's holding their head. And it goes a significant distance.
Your Honor, I think I'm almost done, but I'd like to approach on one issue for the record. Thank you, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. DeMille, with reference to the physical testing that's done at the time of the autopsy, the toxicology results, do you question any of the manner or method of the testing that was done as far as the toxicology results?
Oh, no.
And in this particular case, there were toxicology results regarding the finding of Vicodin in Ms. Clarkson's system as well as alcohol. Is that correct?
Yes.
And with reference to that, does that alone tell you that she held the gun at the time it was discharged?
Oh, no.
Does it suggest it one way or the other?
No. Alcohol just by itself tells you nothing.
Okay. And so that's just a circumstance that you have to consider regarding an explanation as to why she may have held the gun.
Right. But, I'm sure hundreds of people right now in the city of Los Angeles with that alcohol.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna stop there. We've got like 35 minutes more of this guy. Do that tomorrow. I know y'all are sick of him. I'm sick of him too. But we're almost done with him. I want to show you guys something. I know we're tired of the nail issue. But remember I told you if I had my nails on, I could show you? Okay, I did my nails yesterday. I didn't put tips on, though. I just have the acrylic overlay over my real nails. You see that? I did not shoot a gun. I have been crocheting. So it doesn't take much force to chip that acrylic layer off the natural nail. Her nails look natural with just the acrylic overlay over them. So she could have lost that somewhere else. She didn't even have to lose it because of the gun. So the whole fact that they're arguing over a stupid little piece of acrylic gone off of her thumb is ridiculous. Just ridiculous. Oh, hang on. I forgot to set up a portal. Oh, I forgot how to do it. No, I didn't. Hang on. Sorry, guys. If I push the right buttons. One morning I have got to record the whole yard monster thing I have to do with Spike to get him to actually go potty, because he stands there and waits for me to do the whole speech. He stands there on the porch and he looks out like he's looking out at all of the yard monsters that I'm talking to. And then when I get done, I look down at him. I go, okay, is that all right? Did I do enough? Are you good to go? And he'll go, woof. I'll go down and I'll go pee. It's hilarious. Okay, we're good to go. Except this morning, I don't think he went because I put tea in the microwave and I think he heard the microwave and thought I was cooking something and he came back in really fast. So I don't think he went. He might have just peed, so I might have to clean up poop later. Okay, so I will see you guys at Karen Reed if you're coming with me. If not, I will see you again in the morning. Have a wonderful day. Bye.